trek to raise money for charity. In all, you should be locked up. He quit, making the soldiers laugh. Philip announced that he was stepping down from public duties in May. The Royal Crown, for his sense of humor and gaffes, recently joked about his big retirement day, telling celebrity chef Prue Leith, who said, "I'm discovering that what it's like to be on your last legs." Also known as the Duke of Edinburgh, he will still appear at Queen Elizabeth's side from time to time as the 91-year-old monarch soldiers on. Philip is patron, president, or a member of over 780 organizations with which he will continue to be associated, but he won't play an active role by attending engagements. The Queen supported that decision. Philip has had a long association with the military and had once had promising military career. He rose to the level of commander in the Royal Navy after joining in 1939. 2 years after World War II ended, Philip married the future Queen at Westminster Abbey when she was 21 and he was 26. St. George VI made him the Duke of Edinburgh. His career came to an abrupt end when, with George's death in 1952, the Queen coronation in 1953, Philip swore to be his wife's liege man, L-I-E, that's a new word, liege man of life and limb. He settled into a life of supporting Elizabeth in her role as the Queen. Philip was given some 5,500 speeches, written 14 books, and gone on 637 soul visits overseas. He championed environmental and conservative causes and has interest in science, engineering, and industry. He still takes the stairs rather than elevators and can still fit into the uniform he wore after his wedding. He was seen wearing hearing aids for the first time at a palace reception in 2014 at the age of 91. The palace says his health wasn't behind the retirement decision. Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Here are some digest items above national news from the Lincoln Journal-Star. First from New York, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, in one of his first acts in his new post, called Attorney General Jeff Sessions to reassure him that his position was safe, despite the recent onslaught of criticism he has taken from President Donald Trump. Kelly called Sessions on Saturday to stress that the White House was supportive of his work and wanted him to continue his job. According to two people familiar with the call, the people demanded anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly about a private conversation. Kelly, who was appointed to the post the day before, described the president as still miffed at Sessions, but did not plan to fire him or hope he would resign. And from Washington, pardon me, a bipartisan Senate effort to continue federal payments to insurers and avert a costly rattling of health insurance markets faces a dicey future. The uncertainty shows that last week's wreck of the Republican drive to repeal the Affordable Care Act hasn't blunted the issue's sharp-edged politics. Senator Lamar Alexander, a Republican from Tennessee, chairman of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, said on Wednesday he will work with the committee's top Democrat, Senator Patty Murray of Washington State, on a bill next month that would pay insurers through 2018. In exchange, he wants Democrats to agree to make it easier for states to choose their own health coverage standards that insurers must provide and not heed consumer-friendly requirements of former President Barack Obama's law. While that is an idea Democrats say they will discuss, it's unclear whether the two parties can reach a deal. And some briefer notes from Afghanistan. A suicide bombing attack on a NATO convoy in southern Afghanistan on Wednesday left 2 American service members dead, a Pentagon spokesman said. Despite repeated refusals by the U.S. military in Afghanistan to say whether there were any deaths in the assault claimed by the Taliban, Navy Captain Jeff Davis confirmed the casualties in the attack near Kandahar City. About Veterans Affairs, Congress sent President Donald Trump legislation Wednesday to provide the biggest expansion of college age for military veterans in a decade. The measure is a broad effort to better prepare veterans for life after active duty service amid a rapidly changing job market. And there's news of a missile test. The U.S. Air Force successfully launched an unarmed intercontinental ballistic missile from California, the fourth such test this year. The 30th Space Wing says the Minuteman III missile launched Wednesday from Vandenberg Air Base, about 130 miles northwest of Los Angeles. And there's some trade talk. Senate Democrats offered a new set of trade policies Wednesday aimed at appealing to working class voters and regaining advantage on an issue that Donald Trump seized to great effect during last year's presidential campaign. The proposals include renegotiating a trade agreement with Mexico and Canada and strengthening Buy America policies. And from Brazil, Brazil's president survived a key congressional vote that could have suspended him over a bribery charge, mustering enough support Wednesday night to stay in office and avoid being tried by the country's highest court. President Michel Temer needed the support of just 1/3 of the 513 members of the lower chamber of deputies, or 171 members. And finally, a note about park passes. Seniors are snapping up so many lifetime passes good for U.S. national parks ahead of a steep price increase on August 28th that some government agencies have run out and started issuing vouchers.
Very good. This news comes from Geneva. Police in southwestern Switzerland have found in an alpine glacier the remains of a German hiker who went missing almost exactly 30 years ago. The regional Valais Police Department said Wednesday that the remains of the man who were found after two hikers last week happened upon a hand and a pair of shoes sticking out of the glacier, some 6 miles east of the famed Matterhorn. Lab tests identified the deceased man, who was in his mid-40s, when he went missing on August 11, 1987. According to the police spokesman Marcus Ryder, who said that the victim's family had been informed. Ryder said authorities think global warming has increased cause glaciers to retreat, raising the likelihood of finding more human remains such as that. Last month, authorities found the bodies of a Swiss couple nearly 75 years after they went missing on the Transfleron Glacier, some 45 miles away from the Holop, wherever that is. Anyway, Marceline Udre Dumont, who is the 79-year-old survivor, daughter of Marcelin Dumont, and his wife, Francine, said her parents had set off on foot to feed their animals on August 15th back in 1942, but never returned. Here's some news from Lisbon. A light plane made an emergency landing on a packed beach near Lisbon on Wednesday afternoon, killing a 56-year-old man and an 8-year-old girl who were sunbathing on the beach. Hundreds of sunbathers were on the popular beach at Caparica, some 20 miles south of Lisbon. The National Maritime Authority said the man and the girl died on the beach. The occupants of the plane were unhurt and were being questioned by the police. This news comes from Rome. Italian authorities ordered a German group's migrant rescue boat seized Wednesday on suspicion that it was used to aid human traffickers in Libya who are engaged in what's called clandestine immigration. The Dutch flagged boat was ordered by prosecutors to remain in port in Lampedusa, which is a tiny fishing village off of Sicily. The boat is operated by the Berlin-based migrant rescue group, Jugendfret. And some news from Mexico City. A new survey by Mexico's official statistics agency reveals that some 88% of prison inmates said they've paid bribes to guards for things such as food, making phone calls, or getting a blanket or a mattress. In the new survey of more than 64,000 inmates at some 338 prisons, 36% of prisoners reported paying bribes to other inmates who often effectively control parts of penitentiaries. That's
Thanks.
the news from the prisons.
It's 10:21, so it's time for us to turn now to local news and legislative news. This is, of course, from the Lincoln Journal-Star. A Nebraska State Patrol trooper has sued the state, saying women are put through medically unnecessary and sexually invasive examinations to get jobs with the department that are not required of men. Brienne Splitgerber, who was part of the patrol's graduating class in 2015, alleged in a lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court on Tuesday that the exams are unconstitutional and discriminatory. Splitgerber got no assurances from state patrol leaders that they would stop the exams after she reported what happened during her required pre-employment physical, her attorney Thomas White of Omaha said in the lawsuit. Splitgerber said Dr. Stephen Howdrich, or possibly Howdrich, the Lincoln physician selected by the State Patrol to do the exams, instructed her in the September 2014 exam to take off her pants, lie on the table, and position herself to expose her genitalia and anus, apparently to check for a hernia. White said, with the possible exception of one applicant, male candidates for State Patrol jobs were not given a similar exam. When Splitgerber told her regular doctor what had happened, she learned there was and is no legitimate medical purpose for the above described procedure in a pre-employment physical examination, her attorney said. Reached for comment on the allegations Wednesday, Governor Pete Ricketts' spokesman, Taylor Gage, issued a statement. Immediately upon learning of these allegations in June, the governor instructed his chief human resources officer to review this matter, which has subsequently resulted in a criminal investigation by the State Patrol, Gage said. State records list no disciplinary actions against Howdrich. In the fall of 2014, Splitgerber reported details of the examination to her sergeant and to other supervisors, but nothing happened, the lawsuit alleges. When she learned another class of female candidates would have to go through the exam by the same doctor, she went to her captain, who told her an investigation was being conducted. White said Splitgerber was increasingly anxious and concerned by the command structures in action, which created a hostile and dangerous workplace for women. She eventually asked Brad Rice, the head of the State Patrol, until he was fired by the governor in June, about the status of the investigation, February 27th. In March, Rice met with the state troopers union's attorney, Gary Young, and told him he wanted to resolve the issue, according to emails attached to the lawsuit. State Patrol legal counsel Wendy Wusow on March 31st told Young the agency planned to allow job candidates to ask for a medical provider of a specific gender to conduct the pre-employment exam, or could have their own doctor do it. They can have that doctor certify there is no issue with the hernia to avoid having a doctor they are unfamiliar with performing any exam that might make them uncomfortable, Wusow said in the email. Wusow also told the union lawyer that the agency informed the Lincoln doctor it was unhappy with his services and planned to put the contract up for bid before the next recruit class, the email said. Splitgerber sued Rice, Colonel David Sankey, who retired at the end of 2014, and unnamed others, who she alleges permitted them to cover up the matter. She is alleging she was subjected to a hostile work environment and is seeking an unspecified amount of damages. State Patrol spokesman Cody Thomas declined to comment on the lawsuit Wednesday, saying the agency doesn't comment on pending litigation. A spokeswoman for Select Medical, a healthcare group where Howdrich practices, cited patient privacy in declining comment. The safety and care of our patients is always our top priority, a statement said.
Very good, very good. Here's some news from the World Herald from Lincoln, actually. No, yeah, it just comes from Lincoln. Well, we'll find out where it comes from. Anyway, let me see. Changes. Climate changes, says, would be added to Nebraska's science standards for the first time, but students would evaluate the reliability and validity of climate models, according to the latest draft standards proposed yesterday by the Nebraska Department of Education. An earlier draft made public in May worded the climate change standards and science and settled the science. That vision called on students to gather and analyze data from models to recognize patterns in climate change over time. Both versions would have students then make a projection of the future climate trends. Members of the Nebraska State Board of Education will be briefed on the new draft today. The standards list that what students should know and be able to do in science in kindergarten through the high school ages. Board members would approve them at their September meeting, replacing the standards adopted in the year 2010. State law requires the department to update standards every 7 years. Once approved, local districts have a year to adopt the standards or of their own of equal or greater rigor. The latest draft incorporates some changes based on public input via an online survey and emails. The new draft didn't change regarding the topic of evolution, which is addressed in the current state standards as a theory. Students would be expected to demonstrate understanding of the factors causing natural selection in the process of evolution of species over time, and understand how multiple lines of evidence contribute to the strength of scientific theories of natural selection and evolution. Corey Eppier, who is the Chief Academic Officer for the Nebraska Department of Education, says science experts at the post-secondary level say the material on climate change and evolution is scientifically accurate. Epler said he intends to present letters to the board in September from post-secondary representatives and testifying that the standards will prepare students for college and careers. More than 700 people commented on the draft standards from May 5th to June 23rd by way of an anonymous online survey. 63% identified as teachers, 21% as parents. About 88% agreed that the draft standards reflected the essential knowledge and skills that such students need. About half the responses suggested changes in wording and content and design. Columnists were limited to climate change and evolution. Some said that standards did not emphasize the scientific method enough. Others questioned whether the standards borrow too heavily from the next generation science standards, which is a set of national standards adopted by 18 states, including Iowa. Some suggested that the state should test science every year, like it does for math and English language, and the arts, rather than just in the 5th, 8th, and 11th grades. One person expressed concern about pushing more difficult material into lower grades for assistance, asking second graders to plan and conduct an investigation. Some people identifying as college professors said their incoming students lack skills in the draft standards. Cooper said the drafters relied heavily on standards from other states, not just the next generation. We took the best of lots of pieces and made it ours, she said. Although many states embraced the next generation science standards, there are critics. The Thomas B. Fordham lecture graded them a C, criticizing them for putting too much emphasis on science practices over knowledge. Regarding the scientific method, Cooper said the standards would require students to understand the process of doing science, which varies beyond one particular method. Shana Robertson, president of the Nebraska Association of Teachers of Science, said her organization likes that standard decision. and disciplinary core idea, a cross-cutting concept common in different scientific disciplines and science and engineering practice. This approach is also used in the next generation. She said her organization also likes that the standards use examples from the state, such as the Ogallala Aquifer, agriculture, Nebraska's specific flora and fauna, and its geological history. She's comfortable with including climate change. Your job as a teacher is, your job is what it should be. Your job as a teacher is to give them the science behind it. And then at that point, it's the student's choice to decide, she said. The new draft includes the addition of 12th grade, what's called plus standards for chemistry, physics, advanced biology, and anatomy.
Yep. Thanks, Jack. From the Journal Star, Thomas Rogers Kimball, an architect who administered the construction of Nebraska's iconic state capitol, is the newest member of the Nebraska Hall of Fame. Kimball was chosen on the second ballot Wednesday after members of the Hall of Fame Commission narrowed the field of nominees from 12 to 3. The other finalists were George E. Johnson, former chief engineer and general manager of the Central Nebraska Public Power and Irrigation District, and Howard Hanson, a nationally renowned composer and musician who was born in Wahoo. Pardon me. Kimball will become the 26th member of the Hall of Fame when he is formally inducted in 2019. In the meantime, private funds will be raised and a sculptor chosen to prepare a bust that will be displayed at the Capitol. A national leader in the architectural profession, Kimball created a number of Nebraska landmark buildings and exhibition facilities, including planning and designing the 1898 Trans-Mississippi Exposition in Omaha. In 1920, the Nebraska Capitol Commission chose him to be its professional advisor. Kimball, who was born in Ohio in 1862, died in 1934, shortly after completion of the Capitol in 1932. Hall of Fame Commission member Sarah Crook of Nebraska City said all of the 12 nominated candidates deserve recognition. We should make sure their names are prominent in their hometowns, she said. There should be schools named after these people, parks named for them. Others on the list, Solon Hannibal Borglum, a sculptor, Calvin Chapman, a cooper who played a role in the Underground Railroad, Charles Gear, a former state senator, University of Nebraska regent and Lincoln newspaper owner and editor, Thomas Vincent Golden, who was instrumental in bringing Irish immigrants to Nebraska, Omer Madison Kem, three-time populist congressman, Rachel Abby Holloway Lloyd, a chemist who helped spur Nebraska's sugar beet industry, Francis Patrick Matthews, Omaha attorney and businessman, Anna Sadilek Pavelka, associate of Willa Cather, and Matthew Savage, a pioneer Nebraska aviator. My computer has jumped just a moment. About 30 people sat in on Wednesday's discussion at the Capitol and gave the commission a round of applause at the end. Nominees to the Hall of Fame need to have been deceased for at least 35 years, and no more than one person can be added every 5 years. George W. Norris, legendary U.S. Senator and father of Nebraska's unique nonpartisan one-house state legislature, was the first inductee in 1961. Other familiar figures who are members of the Hall of Fame include Willa Cather, John J. Pershing, Father Edward Flanagan, Buffalo Bill Cody, William J. Bryan, Mary Sandoz, Chief Standing Bear, Chief Red Cloud, and Suzette LaFlèche Tibbles.
Very good. From Omaha, we have this news. Omaha's backlog of condemned properties waiting to be demolished could be gone within a few years. Between raising unsafe buildings and slating more to be rehabilitated, the city's list of demined properties has decreased from more than 850 a few years ago to roughly 175 today. Such houses are often damaged by fire or otherwise, and they're often dangerous, attracting children looking to play or people seeking shelter. There are also eyesore that can bring down house values. Our city is only as strong as our weakest neighborhoods, said Marty Barnhart, who's executive director of the Omaha Municipal Land Bank. The agency was formed about 3 years ago to help clear the backlogs. Its goal to get properties ready for rehabilitation by removing liens, not hens, removing liens on other barriers for developers. City leaders had a brief dispute this week over the city's 2018 funding level for demolitions. But by the end of the day, the mayor and the council had agreed that they should keep it at $1 million, the same as last year. It costs roughly $10,000 to tear down the condemned house, as the 2018 budget could demolish about 100 more homes on the list. Assistant Planning Director Jay Davis told the City Council yet on Tuesday that he's also working to revamp the rules about what houses are considered condemned. Previously, the city would condemn a house after issuing several violation notices with no response. The people knew we didn't have the money to tear it down, so they'd play that game, Davis said. But about 2.5 years ago, the city made several changes to its enforcement process. Davis said those changes have led to more court actions and generally stricter enforcement of the law. The city only considers a property condemned if it is structurally unsound. Generally, that means it has been damaged, perhaps by a fire or wind or in a car. Damaged perhaps by fire or wind or a car. Okay. It just kind of hit me that this car hit causes a house to be demolished. Okay. Moving on, those properties near the schools, church, or park get priority. But the city's method of getting $1 million in funding in 2018 caused some alarm Tuesday morning among city council members and Omaha Municipal Land Bank board members. The budget proposed by the mayor, Gene Southard, maintained at the same level of funding for demolition as in 2017, but it cut the city portion by $300,000, assuming that the land bank donors would make up the difference. Several city council members pushed back at a budget briefing. Council President Ben Gray said expecting donors to make up the difference would not send a good message to the private community or the philanthropic community that's working to accelerate the pace of getting these houses down. Southard said she'd always intended that if the funding didn't come from donors, the city would fill in the gap. It was never a question to me at all what that bad budget would be, Southard said on Tuesday night. By that afternoon, said Finance Director Steve Curtis, he had found an extra $300,000 in the budget for the mayor's annexation package. As we balanced out the annexation, I was like, okay, there it is. Councilman Pete Festerson, who was one of the members who pushed for the restoration of the demolition funding, said he's happy with the mayor's solution. We need to maintain our commitment to demolition and new commitment to the land bank to keep making progress on condemned properties throughout the city. Land bank leaders also have been raising money to help accelerate the city's demolition of inhabitable properties. Barnhart said the group's goal has been to raise $500,000 each year on top of the city's $1 million that could clear out the backlog of condemned building in just a few years. Then the city can focus on new condemned housing, which occur at a rate of about 10 or 20 per year. We need to step up, said Councilman Rich Pauls.
Thanks, Jack. There's a nice headline in the Lincoln Journal-Star. Bald eagle eager to fly free. The bald eagle found with a bald head is stronger, irate, and ready to return to the wild. But first, it needs to undergo a pair of relatively risky surgeries. He went from basically starving to death and not being able to fly a foot to now fighting off 3 grown women. So he's doing well, said Molly Mullen of Fontenelle Forest, whose Raptor Recovery Center has spent much of the summer caring for the bird. He could fly back to the wild, and he doesn't understand why he's stuck here. The emaciated male was found Memorial Day weekend on a riverbank near Syracuse, a hard scab covering its crown. The bird was transferred to Raptor Recovery, which began nourishing the eagle and trying to determine what had happened to its head. It contacted dozens of experts and raptor rehabilitation specialists, but weeks passed without answers. Then last month, an Omaha plastic surgeon and longtime raptor recovery volunteer examined the bird at Omaha's Henry Doorly Zoo. Colleen Stice determined it had likely suffered an electrical burn, and she was able to surgically remove the scab to reveal a thin layer of skin covering the eagle's skull. The remaining skin can't produce new feathers, so Stice is planning 2 surgeries to transplant patches of skin and feathers from the bird's inner thigh to the top of its head. Stice specializes in human burn victims, but performed a feathered skin graft as a grad student, Mullen said. The first graft is Friday, and it comes with some risk. The bird will be given anesthesia, and Stice will use a small drill to make abrasions on his scalp, giving the graft a better bonding surface and the necessary blood flow. But they've got to be careful because this small piece of skin is all that's protecting his brain, Mullen said. Stice will sew a partial graft to the eagle's head and then add staples as insurance to guard against the bird trying to tear it off. If its head heals and the graft works, Stice will perform the second surgery. Fontenelle Forest has heard from people worried about the surgeries, and there are potential problems. The bird might not make it through the procedures, or it could suffer an infection. But it wouldn't survive in the wild with nothing to protect its scalp from the sun, she said. We would like to point out that he would be dead by now. Although it's risky, this is the best shot we can give him. With no complications, the eagle could be released by the end of the year. But the bird is losing patience. It was recently transferred from the Raptor Recovery Center to the zoo because it was overpowering its 3 handlers, and it's getting angrier, tearing off its head dressings, Mullen said. He's got no interest in sticking around. The center has saved thousands of dollars because Stice has donated her services and the zoo its veterinary space. The eagle was named Friar Tuck, but is officially known as 172. I jumped again. The 172nd bird the center took in this year. That number is up to 300 now and will double by the end of the year, Mullen said. No other bird has received as much attention as the eagle. Its story appeared nationwide and was picked up internationally. The center is hearing from well-wishers from across the country, and one man said $80 to help the eagle. Fontenelle Forest is leveraging the interest, launching a fundraiser to help care for its other wounded raptors, which come to the center from as far away as Scotts Bluff. We're trying to raise money for all the birds that aren't in the news, Mullen said. There are 600 birds that need to be fed every day and that need medical care every day. To donate to Raptor Recovery, which will help up to 600 birds this year, go to fontenelleforest.org and click Save an Injured Raptor.
Very good. Is an article in the World Herald about a policeman who, well, we'll find out. Anyway, an attorney for the widow of a slain Omaha police officer said yesterday that he's heartened by the support for the bill that would speed up the citizenship process for spouses of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. Kristen Fairnow thanked Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska and other proponents of the bill on behalf of the Hector Orozco family. Omaha police officer Kerry Orozco, Hector's wife, was fatally shot near 30th and Martin Avenue on May 20th of 2015. It was her last scheduled day at work before she started her delayed maternity leave to care for a premature daughter, Olivia. We're cautiously optimistic, Fairness said of the bill's prospects. I think the support of the NCAACP is great, and the bill continues to pick up momentum. The Kerry Orozco Act, introduced by Bacon, would shorten the wait time for a legal permanent resident to apply for citizenship from 5 years to 3. Passage of the bill is someplace here. There it is. Passage of the bill would mean Hector Roscoe would be immediately eligible to apply for citizenship. The NAACP's endorsement, like I said, is expected to attract support from both sides of the aisle. It's common sense legislation. The bill first was introduced by Representative Brad Ashford, a Democrat of Nebraska, in the previous congressional session. It did not make it to the president's desk. I backed the bill when I was running against Mr. Ashford, and I said so during the campaign, Bacon said, by crossing party lines. Well, it crosses party lines. Some Republicans and 6 Democrats have signed on as co-sponsors. Bacon spoke at a press conference in front of Omaha Police Headquarters. Also speaking in favor of the bill's passage were Omaha Mayor Dean Stothard, Deputy Police Chief Libby Davis, and Victor Young, President of the NAACP's Omaha branch. The bill is modeled after a law that allows a person with a green card to immediately apply for citizenship if a spouse who has a member of the military died while in service. Young said the Omaha branch of the NAACP received permission to endorse the bill from national headquarters last week. I knew her, and I knew her wife, knew her work in the community and working with the Black Police Officers Association, Young said. From Eastern hunts to baseball games, though she was always there. Olivia, who is now 2, stood close to her father throughout the press conference, holding his hand or pant leg. We're very grateful that they continued with this bill. That's the end of it.
All right,
It just stopped right there.
Thanks, Jack.
Bang.
It's time now for us to turn to the obituaries, and I will begin with those in the Lincoln Journal-Star. Brower, Sarah Ann Brower, 43, of Fallbrook, California. She was born in Omaha. The funeral service will be 1 p.m. Saturday at St. Mark's Lutheran Church. And the memorials are asked to Nebraska Evangelical Lutheran High School in Waco, Nebraska. Roper and Sons is handling the arrangements. Brinkman, Elliot Gessler Brinkman, 77. Elliot retired from Lincoln Telephone and Telegraph and served in the United States Air Force. Memorial service will be held at 3 p.m. August 26th at Bethany Christian Church in Lincoln. Chansley, Beverly Ann Chansley, 87, of Lincoln. Family will greet friends from 5 to 7 Thursday the 3rd at Roper and Sons, 4300 O Street. There will be no viewing, and she will be cremated. Memorials are asked to the Alzheimer's Association Great Plains chapter. Roper and Sons. Cox, Dolores Jane Cox, 80, of Lincoln. Private family services will be held, and there will be no viewing. Memorials are asked to the Alzheimer's Association Great Plains chapter. Roper and Sons is handling the arrangements. Ferguson, Kenneth L. Ferguson, 92, of Lincoln, formerly of Beaver Crossing. There will be no visitation. The Celebration of Life service will be held at 4 o'clock Saturday, August 5th at St. Paul United Methodist Church in Lincoln. Memorials are the donor's choice. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Zabka Funeral Home in Seward. Heinrichs, Heinrichs, Arnold Arnie Heinrichs, 88, of Bruning. The funeral will be 10:30 a.m. Saturday at Trinity Lutheran Church in Bruning. Farmer and Son Funeral Home in Geneva is handling the arrangements. In lieu of flowers, memorials are suggested to Trinity Lutheran Church in Bruning. Hendricks, Mary C. Hendricks, she was 85. There's no further information today. Johnson, Keith William Johnson, 73, of Rockville, Maryland. A memorial service is scheduled for 10 a.m. August 5th at Calvary Lutheran Church of Swede Home. Dubas Funeral Home of Stromsburg is serving the family. pardon me, Alberta E. Little of Crab Orchard was 90 years old when she died, and that's all the information we have right now. Plessel, Donald R. Plessel, 80 of Seward. The visitation will be from 1 to 8:30 p.m. Thursday, with family receiving friends from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Zabka Funeral Home in Seward. The services, pardon me, will be at 1 o'clock Friday at the Seward United Methodist Church. Posey, SEM Posey, 95 of Lincoln. That's all we have right now. Nackey, John William Nackey, 59, born in Hebron. The celebration of life service will be held 11 a.m. Friday at the Lincoln Berea Church. Memorials to the family or the Lincoln Berea Church. Wyuka Funeral Home. And finally, Tyler, Margaret M. Schmier Tyler, 89. Services are pending at the Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. And that's all we have in the Journal Star today.
That's kind of shortened list, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I'm all in favor of that. Shortened list. These are the obituaries from the Omaha World Herald. Belms, B-L-N-S, how it's spelled. Mary Jane Belms, age 93. Roby Funeral Home in Plattsmouth is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials can be made to the Plattsmouth Senior Center or the First United Methodist Church. Bilharz, I'll spell that B-I-L-H-A-R-Z. Lester Jr. Bilharz, age 83. Crosby, Burka Swanson, Golden Colonial Chapel is handling the arrangements. And in lieu of flowers, memorials are maybe sent to the Stevens Center, which is located on 2723 Q Street here in Omaha. Bolte, I'll spell that B-O-L-T-E. Brenda Day Bolte, age 49. The Raymond Mortuary is handling the arrangements, and memorials may be given to the family. They will be used to Brenda's memory at a later date. Cernius, C-E-R-N-I-U-S. Anna Cernius, age 86. Driscoll, Arkansas Skevich Funeral Home is in charge. Cheslak, C-H-E-S-L-A-K. Bernice M. Cheslak, age 91. Evie Hoffman Bellart Chapel is in charge. And memorials are suggested to the Christ the King Educational Fund. Clark, Jean M. Clark, age 76. Memorials may be made to the Harvey Oaks Baptist Church or to the Sunshine Christian Preschool or to the grandchildren of Jean. Evie Hoffman Bellart Chapel is in charge. Collins, Elizabeth L. Collins, her maiden name was McLaughlin, age 89. Johnny Gentleman, Bellevue, Bellevue Memorial Chapel is handling the arrangements. Memorials may be made to the St. Mary's Catholic Church in Bellevue or the St. Vincent de Paul Society. Divine, Don Divine. There's no age given or date of birth. The memorials may be made to the charity of your choice. There's no mortuary given either, but there will be a service at the Belvedere. I'm not too sure what this reads. It doesn't really give a place. I'm trying to make something up. The Belvedere or something in Papillion, Nebraska. Your choice. There's no date or other given as far as the celebration is concerned. Anyway, then moving on to the obituaries here in the World Herald. Lacey Dills, age 36. The Polly Jones Funeral Home located in Avoca, Iowa is handling the rearrangements. Dahl, Jewel Maxine Dahl, age 94. The Bremen Mortuary is in charge of the arrangements for the funeral. Memorials may be made to the Radio Talking Book Network. That's us. And that's all I have. Moving on, Dunn. Mary Bender Dunn, age 70. Johnny Gentleman Mortuary located at their 72nd Street Chapel is handling the arrangements. Memorials may be made to the Little White Dog Rescue or the University of Nebraska Foundation, supporting the Lori Bycrick Memorial Scholarship Fund, which is located in Lincoln, Nebraska. Their address in Lincoln is 1010 Lincoln Mall, Suite 300, and the zip code there is 68508. Gurnett, William M. Gurnett. Eefenhofen Beller Chapel is handling the arrangements. Memorials may be made to the Community Alliance. Hickman, Ralph II Hickman, known as Kurt, age 70. The Bremen Mortuary is in charge. The memorials may be made to the church or to the Omaha Garden Project. Jensen, Brigida, known as Bonnie Jensen, age 90. The Collar-Dosey Mortuary located in Papillion is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials are suggested to the church. And the church is the St. Columkille Catholic Church here in Omaha. Kazmarek, Princess Anne Kazmarek, maiden name was Bushel, which is spelled B-U-E-C-H-E-L. That's the maiden name. Age 92. Johnny Gentleman Mortuaries at the Pacific Street Chapel is handling the arrangements. Memorials may be made for masses at Christ the King Catholic Church or masses at the Sacred Heart Catholic Church of Lincoln. Memorials may also be made to the Shanna Francis House or Marion High School. Kastrup, I'll spell that K-A-S-T-R-U-P. Julie M. Kastrup, age 73. The Wentz Funeral Home, located in Hartington, Nebraska, is in charge of the funeral arrangements. Memorials may be directed to the Hartington Senior Citizen Center. Kell, James J., known as Jim. Kell, age 86. Eefenhofen Beller Chapel is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials will be directed by the family. Masters, Lewis J. Masters Jr., age 76. Eefenhofen Beller Chapel is handling the arrangements. Memorials may be directed to the family. McGrath, Rita Ann McGrath, age 83. Kariska Larkin Staskevich Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. There's no memorial shown here. Newcomb, Fred R. Newcomb, age 80, of Council Bluffs. The Roy Kilnoski Funeral Home in Council Bluffs is handling the funeral arrangements. Memorials may be made directly to the family. Novak, Jane S. Novak, age 86. The Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Eefenhofen is in charge of the arrangements. Osborne, Nanette M. Osborne, or known as Fred, and maiden name was Logan, age 63. Ethan Hoffman, Bel-Air Chapel, was in charge of the arrangements. Memorials will be handled by the family. Perteet, I'll spell that Perteet. Martin L. Perteet, age 68. Services will be held in Healdsburg, Mississippi. Well, I don't know, what is it? MS Mississippi? Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. I wasn't too sure about that. Okay, thank you. Service will be held in Harrisburg, Mississippi. It didn't say where. Didn't say which mortuary. Just that services will be held in that particular town. Schlieffert, I'll spell it Schlieffert. Mervyn Leroy, known as Merv Schlieffert, age 82. The O'Brien Stratman Redinger Funeral Home in Kearney, Nebraska is handling the funeral arrangements. Memorials are suggested to Kearney's First United Methodist Church or the Habitat for Humanity in his name. Seidler Beatrice E. Seidler, age 92. Let me see. There's no mortuary given or services given. Anyway, there'll be interment 11 o'clock in the morning. There's something here. Interment 11 o'clock in the morning at St. Joseph Cemetery, located in Council Bluffs. That'll be tomorrow, August 5th, at the cemetery. Siegfried, Arthur Courtney Siegfried, born in 1933. Crosby, Burke, Swanson Golden Colonial Chapel is in charge of the arrangements. Says, please direct memorials to the Mission Church, which is located at 3401 Patrick Avenue here in Omaha, which is opening to help restore North Omaha, where Daddy worked for so many years. Selfridge, Clfridge, Agnes Marie Selfridge, age 95. Evenhofen Bel-Air Chapel is in charge of the arrangement. Memorials will be directed by the family. Schiffrmiller, Schiffrmiller, Barbara Schiffrmiller, age 90. Evenhofen Bel-Air Chapel is in charge of the arrangements. Small, Patrick John, Jon, Patrick John Small, age 52. Evenhofen Bel-Air Chapel is in charge. Memorials will be directed by the family. Stock, Kenneth E. Stock, age 67. Evenhofen is in charge at their Bel-Air Chapel location. There will be private family service, and memorials may be made to the Nebraska Humane Society. Surville, Survil, Todd M. Surville, age 55. John Gentleman's location on Pacific Street is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials may be made to the St. Mary's Catholic Church. Tattleman, Tattelmann, First name is Bellamy. I'll spell that also. Baylamae. Bellamy, known as Billy Tallman, age 86. Ethan Hoffman is in charge at their Bel Air Chapel. Taylor Lance Adam Taylor, age 42. Ethan Hoffman, Bel Air Chapel, is in charge of the arrangements. Memorial is related to a fund for the Taylor Children's Education. And the last obituary from the Omaha World Herald is Tren Hale, spelled Trenhalle, Gail Annette Trenhale, age 75. The Raymond Mortuary is in charge of the arrangements. And there's no memorial shown. And those were the obituaries from the Omaha World Herald.
Thank you, Jack. Listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and will go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter.
And thank you very much, Deb Beatty.
Well, there's some strange names in
these.
these.
Some days, Lincoln Journal Star. We'll be back.
I was a teacher, so I've seen lots of names.
Oh, have you?
Take a short break.
What did you
First
do?
thing
You thought here in Omaha, did you?
Well, Millard and Council Bluffs.
Senior home delivery meal menus for today. And here with the home delivery meal menu
What did you
is
do?
Ann Pelican.
I worked most years at Mutual of Omaha.
Oh,
Is that your water or not?
That was your
I think it's
water.
mine, yeah.
I just moved it because it was going to tip over.
Twice
From
baked
the paper.
mashed potatoes.
I think,
Thank you, that'd be a mess.
yeah, I think
Fried
we'll do
bread
the
with
letters
margarine,
to the Public Pulse and the letters to the
mango
editor.
orange juice,
But I
and a
don't think I'll read the
pint of
editorial because we're kind of over time.
And thank you very, very much, Ann Pelican, for reading the menu for today. And please keep in mind, you can hear this menu
What's your
again
editorial
at
like?
1 o'clock, just after the
Well, I'm
news
just
this
trying
afternoon.
to,
Over there by
the headlines
to
may
invoice
beware the
from the
invasion of
bookshelf.
bots.
We will
Well,
play today's
but this
menu
is-
along with tomorrow's menu.
What about the
for
World
your
Herald
meal
editorial?
planning.
What about the editor's editorial in the paper by the?
I very
Do you
seldom
want to
read that.
grow your
Hmm?
leadership
You don't
skills?
usually use that?
Meet
I
other
usually don't
aligned
unless it's,
Oh,
and
I
local
find,
people.
these in the morning.
Learn about leadership opportunities.
All righty.
Anyway.
This is Jane Nielsen, the Executive Director of Radio Talking Book
Invasion
Service,
of the bots.
and I'd like to
I'll
tell
read it,
you
just find out
about
what it
the
is.
conference coming up. It's the Midwest Leadership Conference
You
and
know what a bots
also
is,
Young
but yeah,
Professional
POC.
Seminar.
It's a
Anyone
device
over 18
in the
is
computer
welcome
that acts like a
and
robot.
encouraged to
I mean,
participate.
Oh, really?
automatic
Oh,
stuff.
It's a
robots.
conference
Oh,
about
okay.
leadership and collaboration. It's at the
Well,
Regency
read and find out.
Lodge in Omaha,
Yeah.
Nebraska.
But you're
I
gonna,
don't-
It's
I don't know.
August
and you normally do the
4th, 5th,
letters
and
in
6th.
the.
Well, I can't read them all. I
2017.
mean,
You can't
But
read them
here's
all?
what
There
you
isn't-
should
no, there isn't
know
enough time
about
usually.
No, I meant
Young
those
Professional
letters?
Seminar.
Here?
It's
Yeah,
during
in the Public
same
Pulse, you
time
don't read those?
period, But it's geared
Some I do.
towards folks
I mean,
in
they're
the
not
18
enough
to
time
40
to read
year
all this.
range.
One of
It's a
these.
unique
That's what I
one-day
normally do.
seminar for
Okay.
young adults who want to grow in their
If
leadership
it's,
skills.
if they're
Again, that's
interesting
also at the Regency Lodge in Omaha, Saturday, August 5th,
commentaries.
with a social hour on Friday
Editorial
night.
commentaries, yeah.
Don't miss this opportunity. If you're
This is down
interested,
here. Don't
please
believe
check out http://midwest.acb.org
it. Might be okay.
to register and get more information. Again, that's the Midwest Leadership Conference, and you can register at midwest.acb.org. And if you want more information and you don't have access to the internet, please call me here at Radio Talking Book Service at 402-572-3003.
And thank you very much, Jane Nielsen, for that. And I think we're going to try, I have to get approval from Jane. Have not talked to her about it yet, but I've been thinking of running the interview once more with Jim Urach and Sarah Conrad that was recorded a few weeks ago. And it talks all about the conference and runs down the complete agenda and might be a good thing for some people to hear who might be a little bit on the fence and might not be sure if they want to come. So I'm thinking of running that from 3:30 this afternoon Central Time to 4:15. It's about a 44-minute program. So we may replace health and wellness and part of the magazine rack today only with the interview. So I will have more to say about that later. And you are tuned, of course, to the Radio Talking Book Network in Nebraska. And now
Okay, if
let's
I
head
start
on
with
back
the
over to
public-
our fine
Oh,
readers
yeah,
that
yeah,
used to
go
be
right
away
ahead,
for
yeah.
the second hour of reading from today's Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal Star. Here once again are our stars, Deb Adie and Jack Gibbs.
Thanks very much, Paul. It's time for editorials now, and we're going to begin with the letters to the editor in the Lincoln Journal Star. The first letter is from Carrie Wilbur of Lincoln. She writes, I'm the mother to 4 children who have all attended Cahowa Elementary, with 2 who are still currently attending. I'm writing this letter because I feel passionate about the unsafe conditions at the intersection of 84th Street and Layton Avenue. We moved into our home in Harrison Heights in 2009. Then our oldest daughter was in 2nd grade at Cahowa. Our oldest son was starting kindergarten. Our youngest son was enrolled in preschool at Faith Lutheran, and I was almost full term with our then unborn youngest daughter. We knew 84th was dangerous when we moved into our home, but I underestimated my kids' desire to walk or ride bikes to school. My husband has flexible schedules, and with the help of my parents and other neighboring moms, they had rides to and from school each day. As our children grew, the request to walk or ride their bikes to school became more persistent and never went away. Allowing the children to walk or ride their bikes to school on their own was something I could not give in to. Working in healthcare, I saw firsthand the consequences of unsafe situations. On my way to work over the years, I had witnessed dangerous scenarios at the intersection. We recently moved, and one of the first things my son said was, "Now I can ride my bike to school." Riding your bike to school shouldn't be a privilege. It should be available to all. Again, that's Carrie Wilbur of Lincoln. The next letter is from Rich Schomer of Alliance. He writes, is it really necessary for Governor Pete Ricketts to travel all the way to Alliance to view the solar eclipse from Carhenge? It seems like a terrible waste of the taxpayers' money. You'd think the State Patrol could locate a junkyard a little closer to the Capitol, where he could spend some time standing in the dark. He could then spend the time he saved contemplating why recent reports have ranked Nebraska as the worst performing economy in the nation. Rich Schomer of Alliance. And the last letter in today's Lincoln Journal Star is from Stacy Watson of Lincoln. She writes, I went to my first rant hall Monday at Lux Middle School. It was supposed to be my first town hall. You know, the in-person exchange of ideas and positions with your representative, face-to-face communication. But the majority of the crowd had no intention of communication or listening or even just plain old manners. They came to rant. I was sincerely interested in hearing everyone's questions and concerns, and more importantly, what Representative Jeff Fortenberry's response would be. But there were not questions, only over-emotional accusations. It became impossible to hear his responses amid shouted insults and yelling from the crowd. What I experienced was a group of adults who have lost the ability to communicate face-to-face. Blame cell phones, blame the internet, blame the swamp. I blame the people who just yelled and interrupted. What I will remember the most over the hour, the congressman's steady demeanor. It may be his last town hall meeting. I know it was mine. Stacy Watson from Lincoln.
Thank you. Editorial written by, kind of a letter, I guess, more than anything else, written by Ann Applebaum, who is a writer for the Washington Post newspaper. You know, this scenario from Hollywood, mankind has invented a computer or a robot that has taken on a life of its own. In the 2001 A Space Odyssey, it's an all-seeing computer with a human voice. In Westworld, the robots are lifelike androids and that begin to think for themselves. But in almost every case, the out-of-control artificial life form is anthropomorphic. It has a face on a body, or at least a human voice and a physical presence in the real world. But what if the real threat from artificial life is just a piece of computer code that can affect what you see and therefore what you think and feel? In other words, what if it's bot but not a robot? A bot really is just a piece of computer code that can do things that humans can do. Wikipedia, which uses bots to correct spelling and grammar on its articles, bots can also play computer games or place gambling bets on behalf of human controllers. Noteworthy, bots are now a major force on social media, where they can so-called like people and causes, post commitments, comments, react to others. Bots can be programmed to tweet out insults in response to particular words, to share Facebook pages, to repeat slogans to show distrust. Slowly, their influence is growing. One tech executive said, told me that the reckons that have R-E-C-K reckons, okay, told me the reckons that half of the users on Twitter are bots created by computers that either sell them or use them to promote various causes. The Computational Propaganda Research Project at the University of Oxford has described how bots are used to promote either political parties or government agendas in 28 different countries. They can harass political opponents or their followers, promote policies, or simply seek to get ideas into circulation. About a week ago, for example, sympathizers of the Polish government launched a coordinated Twitter bot campaign with the hashtag astrofunding, not exactly a Polish word, that sought to convince Poles that anti-government demonstrators were fake, outsiders or foreigners paid to demonstrate. That particular campaign failed, but others succeed, or at least they seem to. The question now is whether, given how many different botnets are running at any particular time, we even know what that even means. It's possible for the computer scientists to examine and explain which one is individually. It's people for psychologists to study why people react the way they do to online interactions, why fact-checking doesn't work, for example, or why social media increases aggression. But no one is really able to explain the way that all interact or what the impact of both real and artificial online campaigns might be on the way people think or form opinions. Another digital forensic research lab investigation into pro-Trump and anti-Trump bots showed the extraordinary number of groups that are involved in these dueling conversations. Some commercial, some political, some foreign. The conclusion is this: they are distorting the conversation, but toward what end? Nobody knows, which is my point. Maybe we've been imagining this scenario incorrectly all of this time. Maybe this is what so-called computers out of control really look like. We have created a swamp of unreality, a world where you know whether the emotions you are feeling are manipulated by men or machines, and where, once all news moves online, as it surely will, it will soon be impossible to know what's real and what's imagined. Isn't this the dystopia? You know, you pronounce dystopia.
Yes, dystopia.
Dystopia, what does that mean?
It means a world where things are not fitting together.
Well, thank you for your thank you. Is it the dystopia? Isn't this dystopia we have so long feared? And my worthy counterpart here just explained what dystopia is. Thank you.
It's the opposite of utopia. Good, you know, a utopia is a world where everything is perfect,
Yeah.
and a dystopia is a world where everything is awful.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. It's 11:20, so it's time now to turn to today's living and entertainment sections of the paper, which are practically non-existent anymore. But I have asked the doctors in the Journal Star. These doctors are Elizabeth Cole and Eve Glazier. Dear doctor, so many people are required to undergo tuberculosis screening, even though they don't know anyone with TB and have no symptoms. Just how contagious is tuberculosis? I cough for effect. Tuberculosis, or TB, is an extremely infectious and potentially life-threatening disease. 1/3 of the world's population is infected with TB, which causes about 1.7 million deaths each year. Infection rates in the United States are quite low by comparison, with 9,287 new cases reported in 2016. The causative agent of TB is a rod-shaped bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It's released into the air when an infected person sneezes, coughs, or even speaks or breathes. By breathing in these microscopic droplets, which can remain airborne for several hours, a person who comes into contact with an individual with an active TB infection can contract the disease. Transmission of TB after brief exposure to an infected individual is rare. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, TB cannot be spread by contact with clothes, a handshake, the toilet, or other surfaces. Once the TB bacterium is inhaled, it can move through the bloodstream to other parts of the body, like the kidneys, spine, or brain. However, in most cases, the bacterium affects the lungs. There, if left untreated, it can cause pockets and cavities to form. These can bleed, get infected, and form abscesses, cause holes, or block airways. Left untreated, TB can kill you. You asked why even those without TB symptoms are tested. The reason is that in most healthy people, the body's immune system is good at neutralizing the TB bacterium. It does this by forming a protective capsule known as a granuloma around the bacillus. Although this isolates the bacterium, it doesn't kill it. That means that the person is now a TB carrier, otherwise known as latent TB. The danger here is that the immune system can lose the upper hand at any time, and the latent infection can become active. People with latent TB don't have symptoms and are not contagious. However, they must receive treatment to get rid of the disease. Without anti-TB drugs, active disease can develop. That risk is highest during the first few years following infection. For some people, it continues throughout their lives. So what are the symptoms of TB? They include a bad cough that lasts for 3 weeks or more, a cough that brings up blood or sputum, general weakness or fatigue, unexplained weight loss, fever, chills, and night sweats. If you have had contact with someone who has TB, or if you have several of these symptoms, particularly those involving the lungs, you should get tested. A blood or skin test will show whether the TB bacillus is present. A chest X-ray or a sputum culture will reveal active disease. Treatment will depend on whether the disease is active or latent. Active disease is treated with several drugs taken over the course of up to 6 to 9 months. A further complication is that some TB bacterium is drug resistant. This requires very specific treatment by infectious disease specialists. Send your questions to Ask the Doctors at mednet.ucla.edu.
Thank you. I'm looking for, okay. How about here's an article about wasps. Also big wasps just want nectar, is what the headline reads. Okay. As my border collie, Idgie, and I head out for a walk every day, numerous large black wasps swoop in and out among the flowers, lining the driveway. The blue iridescent wings shine in the sunlight. Just shy of 1.5 inches long, the wasp appears to be something somewhat agitated. But these big wasps ignore us as we walk by within touching us distance. They don't even seem to mind when Idgie, I guess the dog's name, sticks her nose into the plants to investigate or switches her tail against the flowers. The wasp doesn't care about us because they are interested in consuming the nectar that the blossoms provide. like Montana mint or milkweed. These scary-looking but docile insects are known as great black wasps. And then it gives the technical word genus, I guess you call it, for these particular black wasps. Steel blue cricket hunter is another common name that can be confusing. That name is also used to refer to a smaller type of wasp. Great black wasps are common throughout the Midwest and beyond. They're considered solitary wasps rather than social insects because they nest alone rather than in a big group. With no common nest to defend, these wasps are very unlikely to sting you unless you aggressively threaten them. Each female makes a tunnel in soft earth. She then catches and stings a big, soft-bodied insect such as a grasshopper, cricket, or a katydid, whatever that is. The sting paralyzes the prey but doesn't kill it. After several of these insects are collected in a chamber, she lays eggs and closes that chamber before making a new one in the tunnel. After the whole tunnel is filled, she seals that off as well. When the eggs hatch, the larvae find truth, so-called meat, waiting for them. Sometimes I've been told a bird will snatch the paralyzed prey from the wasp for an easy snack. The great black wasp simply goes back to hunting for another big, juicy insect. In exchange for allowing the great black wasp to feed and nest undeterred, a gardener gets help controlling insect pests. These wasps are also important pollinators, so welcome them. Actually, all kinds of wasps have a beneficial side, helping with pest control and pollination. But Mother Nature can be complicated. If paper wasps make a nest in the overhang by your door, for example, they will be irritated every time you go in and out the door. And the yellow jacket nest in the ground where you mow the grass or might otherwise disturb it poses too much danger to people to tolerate. These highly agitated or aggressive insects will sting in mass if disturbed. Much as I hate to kill the wasp or use chemicals, we've twice had to call in an insect pest control assistant and professional to deal with a yellow jacket nest. I don't deal with any of them. And that's the article about wasps from the Omaha World Herald.
All right. I have Dear Amy in the Lincoln Journal Star.
I forgot to do this.
Dear Amy, my life is lacking in love. I have felt empty inside for many, many years. I have been married for a long time, but my wife is content with our platonic relationship. Not only do we rarely touch, but she has very little interest in me in my life. Before we married, I had several failed relationships. They cheated on me. I also had a stepmother who was cold and uncaring, and my real mother died when I was young. As long as I can remember, I filled this void in my soul with pornography. Now, in addition to porn, I meet women through online sites for body rubs, just so I can feel the touch of someone and feel wanted for a few minutes. There are times I feel suicidal. Divorce is the last resort because we have children who are now adults. I see no solution to my situation and could use your advice. Lonely and loveless. Dear Lonely, you paint a landscape filled with sadness, and I am very sorry. I completely understand the need for physical touch and emotional nurturing, but I am urging you to use some of the funds you spend on erotic massage to see a therapist, preferably a male counselor who specializes in sexual dysfunction. You should also be screened for depression. This sort of deep dive into your past could have a transformative and lasting impact on you. I fail to see the reasoning behind staying in a loveless marriage when your offspring are grown. I assume your children are somewhat aware of your depression and your relationship with their mother. They might be relieved if you two decided to part. I assume that your wife would also be relieved. It is impossible for her to connect sexually with someone addicted to pornography. Surely you understand that this is an unhealthy situation for both of you. If you feel trapped in an escalating cycle of porn use, and it sounds as if you do, many readers have recommended the support group Sexaholics Anonymous, which appears to function on a 12-step principle with the goal of sexual sobriety. The group has meetings in every state. Check sa.org for a meeting. I've lost my place near you. Dear Amy, I'm a happily married woman, and I design t-shirts as a hobby. It is not a full-time business or anything, but just a creative thing I do for fun on the side. My friends, and sometimes strangers as well, enjoy buying my different shirts. Recently, I designed one that had a feminist message. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with the computer. Feminist message that supported independent women. I put this up on Facebook, as I always do, and it got good feedback. However, my mother-in-law saw it and immediately called my husband, asking him what I meant by designing the shirt and wanting to know exactly what problems we were having. I didn't mean the shirt as any sort of personal message, but rather just my own support of strong women. My husband and I are not having any problems, so we laughed off the misunderstanding and assured my mother-in-law that we were fine. However, I could not help but feel a bit irked that she would immediately call and demand information in that manner. If we were actually having marital problems, I would want that to stay between the two of us, unless we both decided to ask her or for outside opinions and advice. If this should ever happen, what is the best way to tell my mother-in-law to please butt out until we asked for her input? Signed, T-shirted. Dear T-shirted, there is a certain ridiculous irony to your mother-in-law's reaction to this. She obviously feels that it is so abnormal to declare yourself to be a strong and independent woman that this very statement denotes a problem of some sort. And then, rather than ask the strong, independent woman about her intent, she asks the man. You and your husband seem like a good team. If your mother-in-law oversteps in the future, your husband should reassure her kindly and then say, Mom, I love you, but my marriage is my own business. You understand that, right? Dear Amy, I smiled when I read the letter from Tattoo Hater, the mother who was offended by her middle-aged daughter's tattoos. Just for that mother's information, I am 75 and just got my first tattoo of a horse head on my leg. My grandson took me to the tattoo parlor, and I love it. No regrets, Pat. Dear Pat, rock on with your bad self.
Here's some Heloise letters. Dear Heloise, I have to look stylish, but I don't have a lot of money. Do you have any hints to help me? Signed, Mary T. from Illinois. Here's Heloise's reply. Hi, Mary. It's great to look pulled together, and even better when you can do it on a budget and all year long, even in the heat of summer. Here are some hints for you. Low-key colors for clothing are best. Shocking pink and orange aren't subtle or refined. Black, navy, buff, ivory, and white are more elegant. Along these same lines, loud prints and patterns are too busy looking. Minimize gaudy jewelry. Have a few quality pieces. A simple watch, a signature bangle bracing, a sparkly pair of diamond or zirconia stud earrings, and a stylish strand of pearls are good basics for a jewelry wardrobe. Stylish people rarely follow trends in clothing. Their wardrobe pieces are classic, well-made, and timeless. This includes shoes. You don't need to have a lot of money to look like you have a lot of money. Keep your clothes tailored and make sure they fit properly. Don't overdo it. Sobriety is key. Signed, Heloise. Here's the next letter. Dear Heloise, make vacation preparation easier and less stressful, I created a spreadsheet with 2 columns. The first column is a list of things I need to take, like electronics, tickets, personal hygiene items, etc., etc. The other column is for things I need to do. I adjust the thermostat, stop the mail, notify the neighbors, etc., etc. When it's time to get ready, I print out my spreadsheet, add or delete from the list as necessary, and I feel assured that I am not forgetting anything. John G. from Fort Wayne, Indiana, has those helpful hints. Next letter, dear Heloise, many doctors' offices request that patients not wear perfume or cologne during their appointments. Such scents can cause allergic allergic reactions in those so affected. Signed, Karen. Dear Eloise, I want to pass on a hint for all of the loose change saving meters before you bring your change to the bank. Please check to see if it accepts coins and how the bank would like to receive them. The bank I work for accepts only loose coins. If you bring them in rolled, we have to unroll them to run the coins through the machine. Save yourself a lot of time. Check before you roll. Signed, Mary of Huntington, Indiana. Next letter, dear Heloise, I am getting older. It's hard to handle the large shampoo and conditioner bottles. I transfer some from the larger bottles into the travel size, which for me is a good size. Penny has that suggestion. And the last suggestion here, dear Heloise, I love that your mother, the original Heloise, had the wisdom to know that family comes before housework. I was lucky to be a stay-at-home mom. I endured housework and enjoyed gardening, cooking, and the PTA. The happiest time of my life was raising my children and amassing a lifetime of memories. Jacqueline has that comment, and those are the Heloise letters.
Thanks, Jack. I have a sort of a transitional article between the paper doesn't have much living news, but I have a transition. You have something?
Well, it's usually gardening or things like that. It seems like most of them.
Well, this is a pretty short article about theaters. It says theaters taking a big hit this summer. Movie theater stocks took a beating Wednesday after AMC Entertainment previewed a grim earnings report. AMC's announcement came amid broader pessimism about what has been a lackluster summer movie season. Lost nearly a quarter of their value a day after the company's announcement late Tuesday that its U.S. box office receipts tumbled 4.4% in the second quarter. A disappointing summer at the box office has put pressure on major North American theater chains, which split grosses with Hollywood studios. Because of a dearth of major summer hits outside the likes of Wonder Woman and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, summer season box office receipts are running about 8% less than last year, according to ComScore. Notable flops have included The Mummy and the recently released Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Did you find something?
Well, it's just this, and it's fairly long, but this is it.
Well, let's go ahead. Well, it's 38. We do business at 40, so let's go on. Let's move on to business. Here's a sort of a short article too about business from Cheyenne, Wyoming. Wyoming is among the coal-friendliest states, but ongoing worries about how the state's first major new coal mine in decades could affect the environment and people living nearby dealt a serious setback to the project Tuesday. A state environmental review panel, the Environmental Quality Council, voted 4-1 to send the mine permit application for the proposed Brook Mine near Sheridan back for more work by the mine developer. The council overrode the State Department of Environmental Quality, which had deemed Lexington, Kentucky-based Ramaco's application complete. The vote is likely to delay the application by several months at least. Council members echoed worries of many local residents, including that they could be left without well water after the mine lowered the water table.
There's some business briefs. This one is about the Qatar Airlines. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Qatar? Qatar? I don't know. Anyway, they plan to invest in American Airlines. Qatar Airways is dropping an attempt. They're dropping an attempt to buy a big stake in American Airlines. An audacious bid that had received a chilly reception from America. Qatar Airlines said the investment no longer meets its objectives. American Airlines Group did not comment immediately. Qatar said in June that it planned to buy an initial stake of up to 4.75% of its American stock. But Americans at Qatar goal was to get a 10% stake. General automakers to get some diesel cars here. General automakers committed to fitting over 5 million diesel cars in the country with updated software to reduce harmful emissions and to finance incentives for drivers to trade in older models. The Transport Minister Alexander Dobrindt said automakers Volkswagen, Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, and Ford will fit some 5.5 million diesel cars with new software starting in the coming months. The VDA Auto Industry Group said that applies to most diesel cars of types made since the year 2009. And here's some local news. Iowa Whirlpool plant at Amata Colonies in east central Iowa intends to hire at least 500 workers. Well, good. Over the next 3 weeks, Whirlpool officials say the hiring will help to keep up with demand for its refrigerator products. Whirlpool wants the new employees hired by the end of August. Well, that's quite a deal. 500 workers in a month.
Yes, it is.
That's good news.
Yes, it is. From the Lincoln Journal-Star, the Associated Press in New York, you could say the Dow cruised to 2,200. The blue chip index rose to its latest milestone without much excitement or drama, as aerospace giant Boeing and a few other companies did most of the work. Stocks have spent the last 5 months gradually moving higher without many big gains or losses. They've drawn strength from rising U.S. corporate profits and continued growth in the economy, along with recoveries in Europe and other regions. And investors still believe that if the global economy or the market ran into serious trouble, central banks would step in to help, as they did after the 2008-2009 global crisis. That's created a very calm stock market. Given the peace and quiet in the markets, it's fitting that a small move, 52 points, all of them essentially from Apple, brought the Dow to its newest milestone. How did we get here? Boeing, McDonald's, and health insurer United Health have contributed more than 700 points out of the 1,000 the Dow has gained since March 1st, when the index topped 21,000 points for the first time. Strong earnings have helped all three companies, with Boeing making huge gains after its second quarter report in late July. It's had a far better year than any other Dow component and is now the highest priced stock on the index. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs and IBM, which helped lead the Dow surge in late 2016 and early 2017, have come crashing back to earth. They're the worst performers on the index this year. What's a 1,000-point move? Not what it used to be. As the index goes higher and higher, each round number milestone represents a smaller move. When the Dow rocketed from 10,000 points to 11,000 points in early 1999, it was a 10% leap. The move from 21 to 22,000 translates to a gain of just 4.8%. The Dow and the S&P 500 have performed about the same this year. As of Wednesday, the Dow is up 11.4% for the year, and the S&P 500 is up 10.7%. Kate Warney, an investment strategist for Edward Jones, compares the Dow to the weather forecast taken at a local airport. It doesn't tell you the exact temperature of your house, but it gives you a general idea of what the weather is. If you watch the Dow, you're not too far off, she says.
Well, I just read about over in Iowa, they get 500 new jobs. Well, here's some bad news, I guess, locally here. But PayPal, one of Omaha's area's largest employers, had laid off an unspecified number of employees. PayPal, which operates a global operational center in La Vista, that employed about 2,800 people as recently as late 2015, has been on a so-called restructuring plan in 2017, this year. Our company spokesman Justin Higgs said PayPal remains committed to the local operations, but would not discuss a specific headcount for its existing local workers, citing company policy. Higgs also declined to enumerate how many jobs or which which departments have been affected by the layoffs. Well, it's 11:45, and I guess we get to move on to the last section, which is sports.
Yes, you're exactly right. I click the computer.
Forgot my hand again.
The headline says, bigger roll ahead, Eric Lee remains a smooth customer at corner. Dante Williams calls Eric Lee a smooth customer. In fact, Williams will tell you that the Nebraska third-year sophomore is so smooth, he appears to be gliding at a slower pace. Everything he does is smooth, Williams said. You almost take him for granted because you never think he's running fast, but because he's so smooth, he is running fast. It's not the first time Lee has heard that. All my life, people have always told me that it doesn't look I'm trying that hard, Lee said, following the completion of fall camp practice number 3 Tuesday. I'd like to think I'm just real smooth with it. There's that word again. I definitely think I have that top gear. I don't say a lot of people haven't seen, but a lot of people wouldn't think that I have. Lee is garnering more attention following a summer injury to Chris Jones. The senior's injury, a meniscus tear, means others will need to step up and quickly. On Tuesday, Lee was answering questions about his readiness. Of course, he handled it like a smooth customer. This is why I came here, so I can try to fulfill a position to try to benefit my team, the former Colorado prep standout said. Obviously, you don't want to see anyone go down, especially your teammates, so it kind of sucks that it was Chris. I'm sorry, my computer keeps jumping. It's just an opportunity for me to step up and try to benefit the team. Lee said his mentality didn't change after Jones's injury in July. He had told himself in January that he was going to play this season after appearing in 8 games, primarily on special teams as a redshirt freshman. A strong spring season followed for Lee, who said the game started to slow down for him. I had the same feeling when I was starting on varsity in high school, said Lee, a prized recruit in the 2015 class. You need that first hit, you need that first tackle just to get your feet wet. So I feel like last year was definitely an opportunity for me to get my feet wet, and now I'm just ready to come in and benefit the team this year. Nebraska coach Mike Riley said Sunday that the Huskers have 3 corners capable of stepping up in key roles: Lee, sophomore Lamar Jackson, and redshirt freshman DiCaprio Boodle. In Williams' eyes, there is no pecking order at the moment. I would just say that those 2, Lee and Boodle, are battling to start, and Lamar already is crowned the king on the other side, the first-year NU assistant said. We have basically a 3-for-2 situation where we have 3 starters, so it's a fortunate situation we're in. In Lee, Williams sees a sophomore with a lot of maturity. He doesn't act like a guy that's 20 years old, Williams said. Eric Lee conducts himself as if he's a 30-year-old grown man. That said, Lee is still learning a lot. In fact, he has picked up an additional coach during fall camp in Jones, who remains involved in meetings and is seen in practices. If he sees something, he's obviously going to correct me because he wants to see me do better too, Lee said. Lee said he looked over to Jones the other day during practice and got a thumbs up. The goal now, Lee says, is to stay consistent because now someone else is trying to take my spot. So you got to work every day like someone's coming out here.
About some basketball here in Nebraska here. With 5 scholarships to give in the class of 2018, is Nebraska's coach Tim Miles inclined to take one player at each position? Not necessarily. The first need will be 4 guards with 6'5" Taylor and 6'3" Anton Gill entering their senior season. We're going to need a big guard, Miles said, and we will lose some athleticism with Dubioki just being here 1 year. So filling those immediate senior departures are the most important thing. Nebraska's top target is 6'3" guard Eric Hunter with Indianapolis. Miles and assistant Michael Lewis, who is from Indiana, have been regulars at Hunter's high school and AAU games. The 4-star recruit listed his top 6 schools in June, in no particular order: Nebraska, Xavier, Ohio State, Butler, Purdue, and Minnesota. Last season, Hunter helped his school to the state championship while averaging just over 25 points and 7.2 rebounds each a game. Other guards Nebraska has shown keen interest in include 6'4" Kyler Edwards from Arlington, Texas, 6'3" Kenshaw Embry from Midwest City, Oklahoma, who has the top five of Nebraska, Creighton, Purdue, Tulsa, and Houston, and 6'3" A.G. Green from Cedar Falls, Iowa. As for inside help, among Nebraska's targets is 6'8" power forward Nate Roberts from Brewster Academy, the school that current Huskers Isaac Copeland and Thomas Allen attended. Roberts' top five schools are Nebraska, Syracuse, Connecticut, Wake Forest, and Washington. Another prospect is 6'9" power forward Kamaka Hepa from Portland, Oregon. Nebraska offered the four-star 16 months ago. Hepa now has offers from Arizona, Gonzaga, Oregon, Stanford, and Texas, among others. We're going to hit some home runs, and we'll miss some, Miles said. With our top 6 to 8 guys in the next month to 7 weeks, it's going to be a really critical time for us. We're organizing visits. We want to get the right people on campus. I'm excited about these potential of some guys. The current roster continues with summer workouts this week before taking a 2-week break before the fall semester starts on August 21st. Miles said no injuries have occurred and that 2 players on the men, Copeland, who had back surgery, and Gill, who had some knee surgery, they are on the schedule. Anton's recovery schedule goes into August and September, Miles said. Isaac has participated in a few workouts so far this year.
Thanks, Jack. Give us action and make it fast. The lords of sports know how Americans like their games. To keep fans engaged in the stands or on TV or mobile devices, the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball have taken steps to shorten games. Now it's college football's turn. Last week, the Pac-12 announced a trial in which some non-conference games on its network this season will feature shorter halftimes from 20 to 15 minutes and fewer commercials. The Mid-American Conference also is picking up the pace, and ESPN said it would place greater emphasis on getting in and out of commercials on time and adhering strictly to 20-minute halftimes on games it televises. All this comes after the average game length in the bowl subdivision increased to a record 3 hours, 24 minutes in 2016. Professional and college sports and their TV partners are wise to watch the clock, University of Nebraska Omaha sociologist Dan Hawkins said. Outside of big cultural events like the latest Game of Thrones episode, we seem to have passed a tipping point where most people are satisfied consuming media on demand at their own convenience and in relative isolation, Hawkins said. But there is a strong social aspect to watching sport, interaction with fellow fans, the immediate and unpredictable nature of a sport, the fear of spoilers from social media or other sources that still make sporting events best consumed in the moment. Clearly, sports leagues are afraid of losing this advantage if the product becomes boring for enough fans, and they're now finally reacting to that. The NBA this month unanimously approved several changes with the intent of speeding the final minutes of games. In college basketball, the NCAA experimented with a couple of time-saving measures in the NIT. Professional baseball uses a 20-second pitch clock in the minor leagues, and Major League Baseball now allows intentional walks to be signaled without throwing pitches. The NFL, with an average game length of about 3 minutes and 9 seconds, that can't be right, 3 hours and 9 minutes last season, this year is reducing the number of commercial breaks per quarter and is changing the protocol for handling video reviews. Longer college football games can be attributed to an increase in scoring, offenses that favor the pass over the run, and the introduction of a video review a decade ago. Last year, average points per team hit 30 points for the first time. The game clock stops for point after touchdown kicks and 2-point tries, and a TV commercial often comes before the ensuing kickoff. Per team pass attempts reached 30 for the first time in 1999, and they have been under that mark only one season since. Incomplete passes stop the clock.
There's some golf news. Jordan Spieth is 1 week away from a shot at the career Grand Slam. He's more interested in looking behind him. Spieth returned to Dallas with the claret jug, and it wasn't more than a few hours before he had watched highlights twice of his British Open victory at Royal Brookdale. The first time was when he couldn't get to sleep. Then caddy Michael Grayler woke up and they watched it together. It was no less amazing from the bogey. He salvaged with a shot from the practice range to the birdie, eagle, birdie streak that followed. And it gave Spieth a chance to set the record straight on Wednesday. He playfully disputed the notion that he was 100 yards right of the fairway on number 13. As the TV commentator suggested, Spieth aimed for the right rough on the 13th hole to take bunkers out of play. He said he knew the ball would move a little right because of rain getting on the face of the driver, and he compounded that by leaving the club open. Even so, he estimated he missed his target by about 20 yards, and then it hit a spectator in the head and went even more to the right over some tall dunes and into a spot where he had to take a penalty drop into the practice range. It really wasn't that bad, he said. I mean, it wasn't a good shot. It was a foul ball to the right. But I need to back myself up here by saying that I'm capable of hitting worse end shots than that, okay? It worked out fine in the end, although Spieth is starting to realize it might be hearing more about playing from the driving range than any of his clutch shots that followed his victory for the third leg of the Grand Slam. He said Royal Brookdale already has already asked for a replica of the 3-iron he hit from the range, which means that's going to be the shot that's pictured there and remember there. Unfortunately, Spieth's spirits have rarely been this high, even with the amount of attention he will face next week at the PGA Championship, where a victory would make him the youngest player to capture the career Grand Slam. The Bridgestone Invitational at Firestone, and a chance to win the third straight tournament. Spieth won the Travelers Championship by holding a bunker shot in the playoff in his last event before the British Open. Firestone is a big course for a par 70, and it figures to get even longer with rain in the forecast the opening 2 rounds, leading tour officials to move the tee times to the morning for Thursdays and Fridays. Dustin Johnson is the defending champion. Rory McIlroy thinks he is the defending champion too. McIlroy won at the Firestone in 2014 during the middle of his big run, the British Open, the Bridgestone Invitational, and the PGA Championship over a 4-week stretch. He missed the following year because of his ankle injury and didn't play last week when the World Golf Championship was moved to late June to make room for the Olympics. I think this week and next week it's probably my favorite 2-week stretch of the year, McIlroy said. It will be a different one for sure. McIlroy fired his caddy after the British Open and will have his best friend Harry Diamond on the bag the next 2 weeks. Johnson is trying to find the form that made him golf's dominant player earlier this year when he ran off 3 straight wins. That fall down the stairs of his rented home at the Masters did more than wrench his back. It cost him momentum he's trying to regain. Spieth has no such issues.
Thanks, Jack. Joe Flacco's health, the salary cap, and of course, potential negative fan reaction. The Baltimore Ravens are weighing all these factors and then some as they continue to wrestle with the decision whether to sign free agent quarterback Colin Kaepernick. It's been a week since Ravens coach John Harbaugh floated the idea of adding Kaepernick, a veteran with the Super Bowl experience and the baggage that comes from his decision that last year to literally sit out the national anthem on game day. The topic of Kaepernick came up on the first day of training camp because Flacco, the team's starter for the past 9 seasons, arrived with a bad back. Flacco still hasn't taken a snap, though he insists he's on the mend. Kaepernick remains an option, particularly since backup Ryan Mallett has not performed well in practice. But the biggest challenge for the Ravens is gauging the potential backlash that might be created by signing a player who gained widespread attention last year for his decision to sit, then eventually kneel during the national anthem to protest police brutality and racial injustice. Well, we've come to 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock noon. It happened last Thursday also. 12
So,
o'clock noon. Yeah.
It keeps happening. So that's all for today from Deb Adie and Jack Gibbs.
Good to be reading with you, Deb, and hope we can do it again sometime. Not that I want Bill to get sick, but good to meet you, and thanks for helping out today.
And thank you both, Jack Gibbs and Deb Adie, for coming in and spending your time with us today so that we could be kept informed from your reading of the Omaha World Herald and the Lincoln Journal-Star. And please have a wonderful rest of the week and a fine weekend from all of us here at the Radio Talking Book Network. This is the Radio Talking Book Network in Nebraska, very proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for over 42 years. The Radio Talking Book Network is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS-FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET, radio, and television. Now, please stay tuned for the
Been reading here very long?
What?
Been reading here very long?
Oh, I've kind of forgotten a couple of years, I guess.
Oh.
I started with just some magazine articles, now and then.
Yeah, with the, yeah.
And then one of the readers I came to fill in for a while, and then he decided to move to Florida or someplace. So they asked me to just stay on and read the paper. I also record a half hour of poetry every week.
Okay. You like poetry? I mean, it's your kind of favorite?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Very good. Our daughter was a teacher at Omaha Public Schools.
Which schools?
Let me see. I have to think about that.
High school or elementary, middle?
Well, it wasn't high school because she taught at Edison. I know that.
So that's an elementary school. Edison is an elementary school.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they've all been, because she's a special ed teacher.
Oh.
And so
That's
she would
important work,
go where
really hard. Special ed is important, but it's really hard work.
Yeah, she kind of left early because, well, a number of reasons actually, but well, she's retired now. She's been retired for 2 years, 3 years, two or 3 years, something like that. Yeah. I think her boss kind of made her. I mean,
happens.
Oh yeah, she had a lot of stories about the politics that go on that she got involved in, at least. But she also worked at or was taught at about 48th and Center. There's a middle school, kind of not a middle school. It's
an alternative school, maybe. 48th and Center. I'm trying to picture that.
It's about 45th. It's kind of on a hill. It is on a hill, in fact. I think it's a fairly large one in terms of students.
I've seen it. I know there's a school there. I don't know the name of it. It's a great big school on the north side of Center.
It's actually on the south side of Center, but anyway.
Oh, well, then I'm thinking of the wrong school.
Okay. Anyways, but she taught it. It isn't probably longer than any other. I think she did 3 or 4 schools in her career there. Yeah. Yeah.
Does she have her own children? Does she have children of her own?
No.
Yeah, my father spent his career in the Omaha Public Schools.
Yeah.
He was a principal in South Omaha, Youngman, and Brown Park before I was born. And then he was at Lothrop in North Omaha for a long time. And then he was at Horace Mann when it opened in North Omaha. It's not there anymore. I mean, the building is there, but it's not that now. It's King Science. And then he did Mars, which was a K through 8 school in South Omaha for the last 17 years. He opened Mars. Principles of all, and he taught at South High social studies for a little while when he was beginning.
Very good.
Well, I'll see if I can cough through some poetry now. At least with the poetry, I can stop when I'm coughing and wait. You can't do that in the paper.
Do you write any
No,
Holmes
I
or?
sure don't.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, Jack.
Same here, sir.
Hi, you guys.
Yes.
You take those?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Okay. How you been?
Oh, pretty good. How about you?
Up and down.
You never know. Evan, any more trouble with dizziness?
With the what?
The dizziness?
I don't know, is the last word?
Oh, dizziness.
Yes, oh, yes, yes.
Off balance a little bit.
Oh. All right, first get